Nietzsche once wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." He wasn't speaking of arrogance, he was describing perception. The rare few who master the mind understand that intelligence isn't proven in words. It's revealed in presence. Most people waste their brilliance trying to be understood, explaining, defending, persuading. But the one who is truly awakened realizes the moment you argue, you've already descended to their level. Words are tools of the reactive. Silence is the weapon of the wise. To outsmart others without speaking is not about manipulation. It's about mastery. It's the art of reading energy instead of reacting to it, of understanding motives without exposing yours, of holding such inner clarity that others unravel in your calm. Because when you stop needing to be seen as intelligent, you become dangerous in a way most will never understand. You don't win by speaking louder. You win by seeing deeper. And in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes the highest form of dominance. 1. Power doesn't speak, it observes. The strongest presence in any room is not the loudest voice. It's the quietest mind. Those who rush to speak are still slaves to their need for recognition. They want to be seen as intelligent. The truly intelligent have no such hunger. They are already full. They observe. Observation is not passivity, it's strategy. The one who watches learns the map of human behavior while everyone else exposes their coordinates. In every conversation, most people are busy trying to dominate, interrupting, boasting, defending. But the observer, he collects data. He studies tone, gesture, rhythm. He notices who needs to impress and who needs to belong. He learns what people worship: attention, validation, agreement, and in learning that, he learns how to move them without motion. Nietzsche understood that silence isn't weakness, it's dominance made invisible. He wrote, "He who cannot command himself will obey. Observation is command of self." You're not pulled into reaction, not seduced by egoic games. You let others reveal themselves because given time, they always do. The one who observes sees what the speaker cannot. The contradictions between words and energy, the micro-expressions of insecurity, the subtle hesitation before a lie. You become fluent in what's unsaid. This is the real power, to see reality as it is, not as it's narrated. Because when you stop trying to speak your intelligence, your silence becomes unnerving. People feel your awareness even when you say nothing. They adjust themselves around your stillness, as if your gaze alone demands truth. That's not charisma, that's clarity. Observation is how intelligence turns into advantage. When you don't rush to prove yourself, you learn what drives everyone else. You start anticipating outcomes before they unfold. You know who to trust, who to ignore, who to test. While others play the game of noise, you are playing the game of foresight. But here's the paradox. The moment you start observing with ego, trying to win, you lose the essence of it. Observation works only when you detach. The observer is not the judge. He is the mirror. He reflects, not reacts. That's why his insight cuts so deep. It carries no agenda. In a world addicted to speaking, stillness becomes terrifying. People fear what they cannot read, and they cannot read silence. Your calm makes them reveal themselves, their nervous laughter, their need to fill the void, their compulsion to prove worth. Each reaction is a confession. That's how you outsmart anyone without saying a word. You stop broadcasting and start listening. You stop performing and start perceiving. You trade noise for nuance, and suddenly, the truth of every person stands bare before you. Power doesn't speak because it doesn't need to. It doesn't convince, it confirms. It doesn't react, it recognizes. It doesn't dominate, it understands. The observer always wins because he sees what others are too busy trying to say. And once you've learned to read people in silence, you'll realize the mind that can remain still while others perform isn't just smarter, it's freer. Because in silence, nothing escapes you. And in understanding everything, you no longer need to speak at all. 2. Silence forces the world to reveal itself. Silence is not emptiness, it's exposure. The moment you stop speaking, the world starts confessing. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it because it reveals what they work hardest to hide: insecurity, uncertainty, need. Words are armor. Conversation is camouflage. When you remove both, the truth appears naked and trembling. You don't have to interrogate people to know them. Just stay silent long enough, and they'll start doing it for you. The anxious will overshare, the proud will posture. The insecure will seek validation. Silence creates pressure, and in that pressure, masks crack. Nietzsche understood this dynamic intimately. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow, but the reverse is also true. He who has no why cannot bear silence." Without distraction, he is forced to confront the hollowness beneath his noise. When you master silence, you become the mirror in which others see themselves. Your stillness makes them restless. They start revealing their values, their fears, their intentions, not to you, but to escape the discomfort of being seen. You do nothing, yet everything unfolds. This is why silence is the most disarming form of intelligence. It doesn't challenge the ego, it starves it. When you don't argue, the other person loses the rhythm of reaction. Their words start tripping over themselves. The silence stretches, and their performance collapses into truth. Power, in its purest form, doesn't chase, it attracts confession. In a world where everyone's desperate to be heard, the one who listens becomes magnetic. People are drawn to your presence, not because you speak brilliantly, but because your silence feels safe or dangerous, depending on what they're hiding. You begin to see that silence is not the absence of communication, it's its highest form. When you stop reacting, you start reading. Tone becomes louder than content. Eyes speak louder than mouths. Every fidget, pause, and breath becomes language. You learn to hear what isn't said, the truth buried between words. This is where psychological warfare ends and awareness begins. You don't manipulate silence, you embody it. You don't withhold words to intimidate. You withhold them to see. Because in silence, energy reveals hierarchy. The one who can stay quiet longest controls the dynamic. The one who can sit in stillness without anxiety shows power that cannot be faked. And the one who speaks first reveals first. It's not about arrogance or games. It's about precision. You learn to let the noise around you unravel itself until clarity is all that's left. And when you finally do speak, every word lands like a blade, because it's forged in silence. It carries weight. It doesn't need volume. It doesn't compete. To outsmart others without saying a word is not about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature. The world is constantly revealing itself. You just need to stop interrupting long enough to watch. The weak fear silence because it exposes them. The wise use it because it empowers them. In silence, you stop reacting to the world, and the world starts reacting to you. 3. Control the frame, not the argument. The strongest mind never argues. It adjusts perception. The moment you argue, you've already accepted someone else's frame, their version of reality. And the one who defines the frame defines the truth. This is one of Nietzsche's most dangerous insights. People don't seek truth, they seek coherence. They cling to whatever story protects their ego, even if it's built on lies. The wise don't waste time trying to win arguments within those illusions. They simply shift the frame until the illusion collapses on its own. To control the frame is to control the invisible context. It's the art of shaping how others interpret what happens before they even realize they've interpreted it. You can do this without saying a word. A pause, a glance, a silence held long enough. These things bend perception more powerfully than 1,000 clever sentences. When you stay calm in conflict, you redefine what power looks like. The reactive one begins to look unhinged, emotional, uncertain. The one who holds the frame doesn't resist, they redirect. They don't fight to be right. They allow the situation to orbit their composure. Because silence is a gravitational force. Every emotional outburst, every defensive word, every attempt to dominate, all of it gets absorbed by your calm presence. You are no longer in the debate. You are the environment in which it unfolds. This is how you outsmart without speaking. You remove yourself from the noise of competition and become the quiet rhythm everyone unconsciously sinks to. Watch carefully. In every conversation, there's someone setting the emotional temperature, the pace, the tone, the emotional frequency. All of it comes from whoever refuses to mirror the other. That person controls the room. Nietzsche saw this as psychological warfare. Madness, he wrote, is rare in individuals, but in groups it is the rule. To control the frame is to remain sane in the presence of collective. Madness to hold your own frequency so strongly that others unconsciously align to it. You don't need dominance, you need direction. The wise redirect emotion instead of reflecting it. When someone raises their voice, you lower yours. When they demand an answer, you pause. When they try to provoke, you simply look. Every reaction they expect, you deny them. Every role they assign you, you reject it. And without realizing it, they start following your script. That's control without control. That's influence without interference. The mind that controls the frame never resists chaos. It absorbs it. It doesn't need to defend truth. Truth reveals itself once the noise burns out. When you stop fighting to be right, you start mastering perception. And perception, not power, is the true battlefield. Because in the end, people don't remember who won the argument. They remember who seemed unshaken, who appeared to know, who carried silence like a crown. To control the frame is to play the higher game, where stillness moves mountains, where silence bends reality, and where power is not in proving, but in perceiving. In every encounter, there is someone chasing validation, and someone holding vision. The one who holds the vision always wins. 4. Emotional restraint is the highest intelligence. Emotion is the oldest form of manipulation and the easiest to weaponize. Most people don't even realize when they're being emotionally baited. They get hooked, pulled into arguments, reactions, and noise until they lose the very thing that grants power: composure. The one who reacts reveals themselves. The one who remains calm learns everything. Reacting is the language of the powerless. It's how people announce that they can be controlled. Every outburst, every defensive explanation, every attempt to set the record straight, it's a confession. You got to me. The most intelligent minds understand this. They know emotion isn't weakness. It's currency, and whoever spends it first loses. Nietzsche saw through this game of power and psychology. He wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. To react blindly, even to injustice, is to mirror the very energy you want to transcend." Emotional restraint isn't numbness, it's sovereignty. It means your state of being is no longer at the mercy of external events. In silence, you control narrative. In composure, you control perception. When you refuse to react, you force others to confront their own chaos. Your calm becomes a mirror that magnifies their volatility. The louder they get, the more foolish they appear. The quieter you remain, the more powerful you become. But restraint is not repression. The difference is crucial. Repression hides emotion, restraint masters it. The restrained individual feels everything: fear, anger, temptation. But nothing leaks without permission. There's awareness without attachment, fire without smoke. Emotional intelligence is not the suppression of passion, it's the redirection of it. You don't extinguish your fire, you learn to aim it. This is the essence of psychological dominance. You become unreactive, not because you lack feeling, but because your emotions no longer own you. The person who can remain still while others unravel wields invisible authority. Their calm presence shifts the atmosphere, silences noise, and draws every eye without a single word spoken. People fear what they can't predict, and nothing is more unpredictable than someone who cannot be provoked. The reactive are readable, the restrained are mysterious, and mystery is the raw material of influence. To practice emotional restraint is to reject society's obsession with expression. The modern world worships oversharing. It calls transparency strength, when in truth it's often surrender. The awakened understand that mystery protects power. You reveal less so you can see more. You withhold reaction so you can direct the entire interaction. Imagine a confrontation. One person erupts in anger, demands a reaction. The other listens silently, eyes calm, unmoving. The first becomes smaller with every outburst. The second expands without effort. This is not passivity, it's precision. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to delay it until it serves you. To respond, not react. To channel, not combust. Because in the hierarchy of intelligence, the highest mind is the quietest one. When you reach that level, emotion becomes art. You can choose when to show it, when to hide it, and when to let it reshape the room. You no longer live as a slave to your own chemistry. And that's when silence stops being defense. It becomes dominance. He who controls his reaction controls the room. He who controls the room controls the narrative. And he who controls the narrative never needs to explain himself again. 5. The mind that needs to win already lost. The obsession with winning is the last addiction of the ego. It is the final illusion that keeps the intelligent trapped in mediocrity. The belief that outsmarting others proves superiority. But the moment you need to win, you've already surrendered control. Because what rules you isn't truth anymore, it's validation. Nietzsche understood that most conflict isn't about ideas. It's about identity. People don't defend truth, they defend their sense of self. To challenge their opinion is to challenge their existence. And so they fight, not to understand, but to be right. The awakened mind no longer plays that game. When you stop needing to win, you enter a higher form of intelligence, one rooted in awareness, not ego. You start to see that victory built on dominance is just another form of dependence. The person who defines their worth through triumph is still enslaved by external outcomes. True intellect doesn't seek to crush opposition. It seeks to see through it. You realize that the louder someone argues, the more fragile their conviction is. The angrier they become, the more they're trying to convince themselves. The awakened mind no longer engages in these rituals of insecurity. It watches and learns. To transcend the need to win is not apathy, it's clarity. You stop mistaking noise for power. You stop mistaking attention for respect. You stop mistaking agreement for truth. When you no longer compete, people lose the ability to manipulate you. You can't be baited into reaction, can't be bribed with praise, can't be destroyed by criticism. You become untouchable, not because you're detached, but because your peace no longer depends on perception. Nietzsche once wrote, "The higher you climb, the smaller you appear to those who cannot fly." The higher mind doesn't need to prove its altitude. It simply watches those below exhaust themselves trying to be seen. The desire to win is the desire to be witnessed. The one who transcends it no longer requires an audience. This is where silence becomes sacred. When you stop needing to assert dominance, you begin to radiate it naturally. There's no struggle left, only gravity. You attract respect by not chasing it. You influence by existing as proof that understanding is more powerful than winning. It's a paradox. The one who argues to be right is controlled by the argument. The one who observes both sides becomes the master of both. You can watch this play out anywhere, from relationships to politics to philosophy. Those obsessed with victory become predictable. Their buttons are visible. But the person who doesn't flinch, doesn't bite, doesn't engage, they dissolve the entire structure of conflict. You don't need to win when you've outgrown the need to fight. You don't need to convince when you've outgrown the need to be understood. That's not weakness, that's evolution. Because the mind that no longer competes begins to create. It steps out of duality and into direction. It stops circling others and starts orbiting truth. And in that stillness, you understand. You were never meant to win the game. You were meant to see through it. When you finally do, you realize that the ultimate victory is in difference. Not coldness, but freedom. You no longer care who's right, who's wrong, or who's watching. You simply know. And knowledge that doesn't need applause is power that can never be taken. In the end, power isn't loud, it's silent. Wisdom doesn't announce itself, it observes. And true intelligence never competes, it simply is. Nietzsche understood that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who dominates the conversation. It's the one who doesn't need to. The quiet mind is immune to manipulation because it no longer plays the games that bind others. It doesn't chase approval, attention, or victory. It simply watches, and in watching, it understands everything. To outsmart others without speaking isn't arrogance. It's awareness. You've stepped beyond the human hunger to be right, to be seen, to be validated. You move from reaction to recognition, from noise to knowing. You no longer fight to control the world. You become so attuned to it that it moves in rhythm with you. And that's the paradox Nietzsche left hidden between his words. The moment you stop proving your power, you embody it. The moment you stop explaining your intelligence, you radiate it. Silence is not emptiness, it's equilibrium. It's the space where truth stands unguarded, and only the awake can see it. So speak less, observe more, withdraw from the noise. Because when your presence becomes your argument, nothing else needs to be said. If this awakens something in you, subscribe and continue walking the silent path of power.